I have, at this stage in quarantine, completely lost track of which episode we're up to. And I will probably work it out at some point and put on the title of the thing when it eventually winds up on YouTube. That aside, we're starting our next adventure with you lot after you ventured down into the ruins of the old city and discovered the cause of the mysterious swarm of manticores and dealt with it with only some issues, apparently.
No issues at all. It was very profitable.
Some anger issues got worked out at some point, others less so.
Also, we tripled our money, like collective money.
There was a bit of looting of your own corpses going on.
Yes, and I believe we gained a lot of gold.
You also noticed that Bingo had slipped away from your group and had vanished, and you went looking and found that at some point or another, Bingo has diverged from the path and gone down a very small, narrow, cracked passage in the cavern wall that was a little too small for the rest of you to attempt. So we will backtrack to what Bingo...
Are we going to find out what happened to Bingo before?
Yes, we will find out what Bingo got up to. So, Bingo, you had been trailing behind the others as they made their way down.
I've only got little legs!
Something shiny caught your eye.
Ooh.
Off to the side, and you went and chased it.
And off we go.
Went down a small twisting passage. At the other end, you realised that what you had seen was actually a fist-sized golden beetle that appeared to have gems.
Is it moving?
It was moving. It was scampering across the sands, and you followed. Going around the corner, you came out into a larger cavern that seemed isolated from the rest. And some of it is sheer stone wall and ruin. Others parts of it are what looks like the walls of buildings. The beetle makes its way through rubble and sand and leads you through to the far end of this cavern, where it crawls up onto a large flat stone surface and just stops and goes silent.
Okay.
As you approach, you see that firstly the stone surface it's on is man-made or not natural. It's not a slab from the stone walls. It is etched and covered in runes, and the beetle sitting on top of it is mechanical in nature.
I want it.
So,
is there anything else mechanical around the room?
You see cogs and springs and pieces of metal and dried timber sort of scattered around, and it doesn't take you long after kicking some of the sand away at the base of this stone slab to realize that what you're standing in is apparently the remains of a workshop of some kind.
Loot the whole place.
And that was what Bingo does for the better part of the next
I want to get the beetle and put it in one
40
of my
minutes.
socks. And then put that sock into another sock and then that sock into another sock.
You scoop the beetle up and put it away, and then start running around and gathering
Shiny, 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 shiny!
anything shiny that you see. Most of the time it's springs and other useful pieces of equipment.
If there's like any sort of notebook, he'd pick it up as well. He's not a great reader, but he could give it to someone else and they could read it to him.
That's our try.
Stories for Bingo.
So-
Bedtime stories. And then you put loaded string B into object 4C. Wow.
Bingo. I'll get you to roll a search check on that one.
Ooh.
So a perception seeing.
Yep. Perception. Oh yeah, my perception's great. Is it dark? Can I use my dark sight?
Yeah, you'll be using your dark sight in here.
Hey. 14.
Right. So you rummage around, you make sure that you go through the mounds of sand here and there just to check that it's not piled up on stuff. And eventually accrue a small pile of loot that you've basically created as a small mound on top of the workbench. In amongst it, you found copper springs and wire, you found cogs and gears, including really fine small ones that would be used in like clockwork. You found a small pouch of silver coins, and best of all, you found, sort of crammed in a corner, a old and extremely worn satchel that contained both fine tools
Ooh.
and a small notebook.
Oh. Is it written in a language that I can understand?
Most of it is, and it appears to be the notes and ingredients of a tinkerer in this workshop, and it has some designs and specifications for some items. At the back couple of pages of the book, however, there is a script that you don't recognize. And its only thing that catches your gaze on that is that some of the symbols in that script and some of the diagrams that go with it match the workbench in front of you.
Ooh. Cool.
Bring the workbench.
Yeah. I'm trying to work out how to bring the workbench with me.
Studying the workbench itself, it is a massive stone slab, bigger than the hole you entered.
Ah, shit.
Huh. Take the back door.
Go for mug.
Use it as a sled.
Can I try and draw a picture of it in the note so I remember what the table looks?
Yep. So you flick to a clean page and you rummage through your pockets and find a small inkwell and pen, and basically spend some time sketching it from all angles, getting details, and it takes you overall the entire endeavor probably the better part of an hour or two.
Okay.
At which point you then gather up all your things and make your way back to see what the others have been up to.
Hi guys!
So you come out and you realize that the tracks going down into the chamber are now matched by a bunch of tracks that have come out. And from memory, can I get you to do a search check? Sorry, a perception seeing now that you've exited.
Yes. 8.
Right.
Well done.
I'm going to like this island. I shall have it all to myself.
You do see the footprints going back out, and you do see the footprints going in, but you don't see anything else of any major interest.
Guys!
The sound echoes through the chambers going beyond, but nothing comes back. There is no sound.
Hello. Eh, 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 eh. Bingo. Boom, boom. I'm bored now. So it looks like they went in and then went back out again.
From the tracks that you see, yes.
Okay, I'll follow the tracks out.
So you make your way out, and the first thing you notice as you're making your way back up towards the town is that there is a lot more manticore bodies on the ground all over the place. As you
Cool.
come up to the town proper, there is a massive manticore corpse mountain now in the town square.
Can I go climb on top of it
Yes, you can.
and just stand there like, ha! I'm the king of Manticore Mountain. Fear me!
So
You probably become quite dirty.
Fear me and my dirt.
the rest of you have had your drinks for a little while and then have chosen roughly about this moment to go looking for a way in which to start searching for Bingo.
Lay all
So
your
you-
bodies at my feet, for the blood shall drain the streets, and I shall claim this land and call it Manticore land.
At which point you're greeted by Bingo pontificating from the top of a mountain of manticore corpses to everyone who is passing.
I told you guys that they would be alive. Bingo, are you a she or a he?
What? I'm a he. Thanks for checking, though.
Where did you go to?
Well, see, I had this really cool adventure, right? That was probably totally cooler than anything you guys were up to.
I highly doubt that.
We fought ourselves and our fears and got a load of cash.
You what? You fought yourselves?
I killed a mug.
It was
And then another one.
exciting.
Ah!
We killed each other a lot.
Did you
Yeah,
perchance
we
eat some strange-looking mushrooms before you did this?
I don't remember. We
Not
didn't
that
even
I
have
can
that many
remember.
beers.
I'll take that as a yes.
Wisp saw it as well.
Look what I found.
What-
So
what did you find?
Just wait. Do. Right, down the side of the bodies.
I imagine
Oh,
Bingo sliding down this pile of manticorpses.
Whee!
Bingo, we have found the manticores as well. I mean, we killed them,
Oh,
so we know about them.
well done. What? Why were they here? There was a big thing, right? They weren't supposed to be here, and they were.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we
we killed them all.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna like respawn or anything.
I don't think so.
We killed the one that made them respawn.
Ah, that was clever. All right, so can anybody read this? And he'll go around and show
Can I
them
take
all
a look?
the back of his notebook.
That's the back cover, dear Bingo.
Just give us a minute. This page here, and this page, and this page, and this, but not the rest. The rest is in common. Read that. But this bit,
Yeah. I can't read.
I won't show you. Then that's fine.
Can I take a
I
look?
still want to see it.
I mean, all right, okay.
Glenn, what do I roll to see if I can understand this?
So the roll you'll be making is an intelligence check. Cryptography, if you've got it.
Oh, cryptography.
Sounds like something that'd be real useful just about now.
I can't use military lore on this?
No, not on this one.
Okay. Was worth a shot. I have 15 in total.
Right. So you hold it out and you sort of look across it, doing what you'd normally do, reading from left to right, and realize that firstly, there's no spaces in any of this text, and that it's not in any language you've ever seen written, even in the ones you don't actually understand. It doesn't take you too long to work out that it's a code of some sort, and so you start trying to search through the patterns.
Yep.
After a lot of umming and ahhing, you realize that you need to rotate the book 90 degrees, do some more umming and ahhing, and then start reading.
Ooh.
What's it say? What's it say? What's it say?
It says here. I don't know. That's out of character me. Glenn,
So-
what do I read?
What you've read is that it is a short note on top of a description of basically a recipe. And the page you're currently looking at, which is the first one in the code, the note above says, this is a recipe that I don't think I will ever make again. It's far, far too dangerous to get loosed on this world. I fear
So
that the army will get their hands on this thing. And the recipe below it is, after a little bit of deduction and utilizing your own skills in engineering, a design for a very intricate type of grenade.
I'm gonna be reading this out and just going, So it's dangerous,
Dangerous. Oh, that sounds sweet.
and I think you like it, Bingo.
Yay.
It's a grenade.
Does it say that I need that particular workbench, or can I do it wherever?
And I'll just continue reading.
So reading further down, it basically says that what you require is a reasonably expensive amount of clockwork pieces and silver springs, and specifically, it also needs the use of the bench and the assistance of a mage.
Oh, bugger.
So I read this out loud, and I go, it needs the use of the bench, and I look at Bingo with this big question mark face, basically.
Yeah.
And it requires the help of a mage. At which
Mage!
point
What's a mage? I need a mage!
I immediately turn to Alara and I go, could you do this?
I mean, if you want, I can hunt mages for you.
I need them alive! I'm pretty sure I need them alive.
I didn't say I
Alara,
was going to kill them.
Alara looks over your shoulder, Silas, and doesn't seem to have any issue with reading it either.
Damn
Well,
it.
yeah, now we've done all the hard work and turned it around for
And she purses her lips a little bit and points at a note right at the bottom and says, "Do you particularly think that this will be a good thing to be throwing around?"
What
And-
does it
We'll
say
go
at the bottom? I
explode.
haven't gotten
So
there.
the last note at the bottom describes the effects of the grenade when thrown,
Ah,
and
ah,
its particular uses.
ah.
And the
Sure.
design is to make a clockwork beetle that,
Oh.
when thrown, will actually scamper towards the target.
Nice.
And then-
Ah.
And then it will attach.
So,
Wait, attach?
funny story. And Bingo shall remove the 5 socks, and he shall pull off the 5th sock. Just stay with me. It gets good. He'll take off the 4th sock, like he's playing Pass the Parcel with only himself, and then the 3rd sock, and then the 2nd sock, and then he'll hold up the 1st sock. Like, in this sock, I hold the best thing I've ever found in my life. And he'll pull out the golden beetle. Ta-da!
Alara looks at the beetle, looks at the design, and looks at the beetle. Edric, yep, it's a perfect match.
So are you going to say that's gonna explode if we throw it?
Alara shakes her head and goes, in its current form, no, it won't do anything.
Oh,
Then we should throw it anyway and check.
no! If he's not going to explode, then he's going to be my friend.
Wow.
How does it know to detonate if it attaches itself?
Alara points at the gems that are embedded in it and says, these have been enchanted.
Uh-huh.
It, as far as I can see, and she's going to actually study it closely, the gems are attuned to feel a heartbeat.
A heartbeat.
So
Uh-huh.
if it's
So-
dead, it won't explode. If its target is dead.
So, if it was active and it was just crawling around and making friends, it would be fine. But if it's thrown through the air, then
She
it's
hovers a
not.
finger over the large gem that seems to be embedded in the head of the beetle and says, this must be pushed and then it must be rolled into a ball to activate.
Oh! So
It's
it
really
could like
complicated.
wander around as my friend and it wouldn't be dangerous.
It's clockwork, so it would require to be wound up, and as far as I can see at the moment, it seems to have run out of steam.
Ah. So do we need that workbench to enchant this one? Or could this one be enchanted at another point?
She looks at it, studies it, holds a hand over it, and then shrugs slightly and says, well, to my knowledge, it's perfectly fine to be wound up and used as a friend as long as you don't push that gemstone and roll it into a ball.
Okay. And if I did hit the gemstone and throw it into a ball, then it would explode?
It would explode when it found something to grab onto.
Ah, this is so cool! I need to give it a name.
Oh, I'm so happy we found you, Bingo. Good to see you're safe and sound.
Ah, did anyone else die while you were doing this? Maybe small children-sized people back on the ship? Anyone happen to have a fatality? No?
I haven't seen him yet.
Ah, no news is good news.
I just wink at Wisp as I say that I haven't seen the kid yet. We did see a spider. But that was
Did you? What sort of spider? Was it mechanical too?
In a
oh, yes
sense.
and no. It was this, and I show Bingo the copper wire spider.
I'm going to throw him the dirtiest look.
That's not a real spider.
It sure looks like a real spider, doesn't it, Wisp?
I'm
I
going to
mean,
murder you one of these days.
I mean, maybe if you're like squinting and not really paying attention.
Or if it's on your shoulder, apparently.
Or if someone is really, really scared of it.
I mean, I suppose if you're really, really scared of spiders. But like, that would be really mean. I mean, who would put a fake spider anywhere near someone who was really, really scared of spiders?
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
know the answer. I know the answer. It's Cirrus. Or
You
Edric.
didn't.
I may have maybe done.
You have disappointed me this day.
Did I get it right? I got it right.
You got it right by getting it wrong.
Yes.
Silas looks all sad at his toes now.
Yeah, that's right. I think I'm going to confiscate this spider.
Only if you use it at least once on Wisp.
No!
I shall do no such thing, but I shall see if the kid is scared of spiders.
Oh, come on.
Good idea.
What? I'm not using it on you.
He's just away. Leave him alone. He's
I'll
so
leave.
mean.
I'll leave him alone when I found out if he's scared of spiders.
Afterwards, we can see if he's scared of cannonballs.
No.
Gifts from the DM.
So, Alara takes this chance to look at Silas and then at you, Bingo, and says, "If you don't mind, I'd like to read that book when you have time. And if you want, Bingo, I can translate it into something
Could
you can understand."
Yes, please. And could you maybe read it to me while you're reading it? Like, I can totally read. I can read. Fine. Just I quite like having things read to me. It makes me feel special.
She smiles and goes, "I think that can be arranged."
Okay. Thank you.
You don't think things like that could be powerful enough to be like the explosions that caused the city to fall in the first place? If you remember what the barkeep was saying.
Isn't it in that case useful to keep these things and throw them onto, like, I don't know, say, my father's house?
I think it'd be very useful if we didn't tell them, because then they might try and take from us. And I don't like it when people take my things.
They won't be able to take your things. That's why we have pistols and swords and axes.
That's true. That's true. And they owe us because we totally just saved them from all the like winged scary things.
Yep. I don't really think they feel like they owe us that.
What? We just did a whole thing and saved them from like weekly ravaging.
Alara taps you on the shoulder, Silas, and then points off to another part of the square and says, "I wouldn't be so sure on that."
I'm gonna look to the part where she points because I have no clue what's there.
This had better be a party with our name on it and a parade with a float.
Where
Two
she's
floats.
And beer. It better be
And
beer.
beer. I can't drink that yet, but yes, for all the people who are overage.
So where she points is across to where Bhajiri is talking to a small group of the townsfolk. And the prisoners from the ship that you captured are being led through and into a building under guard.
Oh yeah, shit, we have a secondary ship now.
We do?
That? It needs heavy repairs, but I believe we have a ship.
You
Oh.
do have
Oh,
the
where did we
ship tied
find
up.
the ship?
A while ago.
Did we just forget about it like we do quite a lot?
So the ship is anchored up to the side of the cliff face near to the Cirrus. It is in dire need of repairs. There is a significant amount of damage up along the hull. The balloon is now damaged in sections, and there's even claw marks now across it where manticores have attacked the ships. The Cirrus seems to be in slightly better shape, but you can see that the crew are working to patch tears in the balloon and retie ropes and to replace any of the damaged sections that appear to have been caught up in the very recent conflict.
That seems better. The barkeep wasn't willing to give us even a drink.
What? You didn't even get a celebratory well done, you saved us all drink? That's just...
No, we didn't get a drink. I remember drinking.
Well
That
done.
might be
Good for you.
screaming.
Yes, we got a drink eventually, but he wasn't really kind about it or anything.
Oh.
I mean, we did just save
It was
them.
a good drink.
Alara's kind of just giving Silas a stare of that basically screams, "I wonder fucking why."
We saved the day. We're like heroes or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and we only
We should be
failed
getting gold and sacrifices and like.
and we
things
only
named
failed
after
to
us.
kill them twice.
Wait, what's a
In our free time.
sacrifice?
Oh,
We'll show you someday.
yeah. Yeah.
Bingo, get the kid.
Where's Tarin when you need her?
What, you need backup protecting the kid?
Yes.
It's okay. I've got my new special gold shiny friend to play with.
Good.
I'll be
Just to keep
distracted.
her occupied.
Yeah. There's
What
at
about
least
the
a
big
week
one
in
next
this.
to you?
How do you feel about practicing your pistol shots with moving targets now? We'll just ask
Yes,
the
you
kid.
should go for Edric.
We'll just ask the kid to hold up a target and then
No.
back and forth on the ship.
I'm gonna draw one on you and see how fast you can go.
Oh.
Me?
Yes.
I am the quickest shot here.
Hmm.
Is that what Alara told you?
Alara looks at you, Mug, and literally just holds her hand up for a high five.
Mug returns a high five. It might be a bit strong for Alara, but it's not meant to hurt her.
The cleverest thing Mug has ever said.
She looks at you sideways, Mug, and goes, "I don't believe you realize the level of sass you've just done, but it is glorious." And with that, she walks away.
Mug's been watching RuPaul's Drag Race. Mug got sassy.
Cyrus is very quiet still.
Yep.
Hey, Cyrus! You've gone really weirdly quiet. Why is that?
I believe I heard my name being called. I have to go there. And Silas shuffles back a bit.
So, after some time, it becomes apparent that the town is basically resuming business as normal. As they remove damage from basically the barricades from the buildings, they're able to reopen some of the shops that they had. There's carts now being brought up filled with barrels of water. There is a group of teens basically using shovels to just remove all the sand that is built up across the cobbles and the roads and to clear the way. And after the bulk of the work is slowly getting under control, the town gathers in the main square. Bhajiri joins on a small temporary stage that's been thrown hastily together out of a couple of the wagons with a small number of what appears to be the town elders. And the survivors of the town all gather around, as does a large portion of your crew, at least those that haven't been assigned to guard duty around your pirate prisoners that are locked up in a building.
Yeah.
One of the older men steps forward and starts speaking to the people and says in a creaking voice, "The last couple of weeks have been the worst kind of hell this town has ever seen visited upon it since the Great Collapse. We have lost many friends, kin and family to the daily, if not weekly, attacks of those beasts. But like after the collapse, we will rebuild and this town will regrow. And we owe that to the help of Captain Bhajiri and his crew."
Woo! Yeah, damn right you do. Woo!
If
Yeah, that's why we cheer for ourselves. Woo!
some of the town folk burst into cheers, some of them seem to be still quite upset, probably mourning lost family in the recent attacks. There is a very small group gathered around a old bearded man standing off to the side that aren't cheering at all.
What is your problem? You look really...
The barkeep looks at you and goes, "Some of us have memories."
Oh,
Such as-
yeah? I should think all those memories should be wiped out by our sudden and amazing victory over those that have kept you horrendously enslaved to your houses for 2 weeks of hell, as your friend just described. He's smiling, but it's under the mask, so you can't tell.
The elder can't quite hear what's going on up the back of the crowd, so he continues and says, "We will rebuild the town, and as payment and thanks for our friends from the Cirrus, we will use what resources we can to repair the pirate vessel that they've brought in, and we can keep the pirates that they have captured so far under lock and key. Beyond that, this will always be considered a safe port for the people of the Cirrus. And whenever they need to restock and rearm, I believe that we can all agree that the crew who have gone out of their way to assist us will get whatever they need to continue their fight and to continue keeping the skies clear of the menaces that face us and all the other free towns."
Woo! Go us! Yeah!
Oh,
Yeah.
is that us? Is that us?
That's us! Cheer! Woo! Drinks all around! Woo!
Drinks, 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 drinks.
Temple fight! Celebratory temple fight!
Temple fight! Temple fight! Yeah. Do you guys have a temple? So we can fight?
Here.
There's a round of cheers and applause and some celebration, and then the town splits up. Some go to drink and party, some drift off towards their homes, and a small group goes and heads off towards the old town. Overall, a lot of the town
I
folk...
think Mug is going to go party,
Yep.
and drink.
A bunch of villagers and townsfolk see the members of the crew that have come and approached them as they've cracked out barrels of ale, and they start handing out tankards. One of them turns around to you, Mug, and says, "We better drink it up all now. The fresh batches are just getting brewed."
Definitely, I will help. Mug is chugging down.
I would like some boiling water, please, to put my coffee into.
So
Can kids drink coffee?
I can. If you want to get between me and my coffee, I'm going to grenade you. I'll push the button on the beetle. I'll do it.
Hey, I was just asking a question.
So a small mug of boiling water gets put in front of you.
Only a small mug.
Bingo is going to put in some of his regular coffee beans and debate putting in one of the special ones. Because he doesn't know what those do, does he?
Not yet, apart from the last time you had one, you felt really weird and woozy and...
Yeah. So it's only uphill from there, so I'm going to put one in.
Go for it.
We're in a safe place, and I can trip... I can trip balls because I'm in a safe place full of safe people.
Roll
Yep.
2d6.
2d6. Okay, I'm going to roll you and you because you are the prettiest. Well, no, you're not the prettiest. That's not fair. Okay, don't get sad. You're the prettiest. Okay. 6.
What? Right, and you rolled a 6. Pick an ability you have.
Strength.
Add +1 to that for the next
Oh,
2 hours. So you feel, so for this session you'll have +1 strength.
woo! Can you try and flip over a table that's like twice as?
Yeah, basically it slowly settles on you that you feel like you could arm wrestle Mug and get away with it. You're feeling stronger than you normally ever do.
Oh, I'm amazing! I am super strong. I'm super cool. I'm a god in a small body. Flips the table.
Just quickly before the table gets flipped, I grab my drink.
Mug is going to copy. Oh, I'm flipping the table as well. If it's a table flipping competition, I'm winning this.
Woo! Yeah. You flip yours and I'll flip mine. 1, 2, 3, go!
Flip. What could go wrong?
You said this was a safe place for us, so you have to put up with anything we do.
I didn't say it was a safe place.
No, they did. All the townspeople who are looking at me like they regret every moment. I love that there's like a gif of just a baby like deadlifting.
So some of the townsfolk cheer and they see you lift up the table and just throw it, considering the table itself should have, by the looks of it, given you a lot of trouble. Sorry, I just read Wisp's comment there. The picture from Silas. No, those were not the village people that were cheering you on.
I wasn't there for a second and I came back and like I didn't know what was happening.
And I attempted to clarify it, noticed a bad pun that I could make, made the bad pun and made it more confusing.
So no, the village people themselves have not put on a show to thank you for your assistance.
We should demand that next time we come that they have a performance prepared for us.
So the party kicks on into the night, and some of the crew, and you notice even Alara has headed off towards the ship to get some sleep. Some of you have taken the time to see to your equipment, investigate bits and pieces you've picked up along the way, and to try out different skills that you've been working on for some time while aboard.
I reckon this is when Mug and I have been practicing reloading.
Yep, Silas, you and Mug go to a sort of quieter place away near the cliffs, and you put out a whole bunch of bottles and teach Mug how to reload faster and to shoot bottles.
Whoa! I didn't know you could do this.
Mug, you find this highly entertaining because Silas' way to convince you to learn is to make you drink for every bottle you hit.
Oh yeah. Definitely going to do this.
So there's like several cases of drinks next to us.
Yeah.
And several empty bottles that we've already emptied in front of us.
Slowly, a
We're
group
just
of
randomly
townsfolk
shooting.
have come over and cheering every time you hit a bottle. They think
Happens
it's
quite a lot, despite us being drunk.
they think it's the most entertaining thing they've ever seen. Considering they've probably been locked up in their houses for the past 4 weeks.
Hey, we know what that feels like.
So, unless any of you have anything specific you want to do, we can cut through to the next morning.
No, I think it must have gone quite well.
I'd like to ask Mug for the remaining pikes back so that I can put them in the armory.
Yep, can do.
I have a plan to improve those.
Oh wait, the remaining what?
You
Black
had that
powder?
pike?
Or... Oh yes, I had the pikes. I forgot about the pikes.
You had a stack of pikes strapped to your back.
Yes, I forgot about the pikes.
It's highly possible
Now I
that they were in the
remember.
corner of the tavern most of the night.
Got so drunk you ended up throwing the pikes at the.
Oops,
Try to
But
reload
these
a
things
pike into a
happen.
pistol.
that might have happened.
What happened? We got bored! But I left for like 2 minutes. We got bored! You guys couldn't stand still for like 2 minutes?
Nope.
You were gone for ages! It was 2 minutes!
Basically, we're puppies.
Yes.
So eventually, you all make your ways to some form of sleep. Whether that be passed out on deck or actually in your hammocks. The next morning comes around, and the difference in the town is actually tangible. Whereas when you first arrived, it was dead silent. There is now the sounds of a bustling township.
Aw.
People are going to work. Then there appears to still be quite a lot of it to be done. And the manticores are slowly disappearing from their pile.
Are they fading, or is that like...
You notice a group of
like the
townfolk.
Wicked Witch.
Yep.
You notice a group of townsfolk are actually dragging them away, sort of one at a time, to throw on a cart, which then takes it somewhere else into the town. And then they'll come back and they'll grab another one or two and throw it on the cart.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Does it though? What are they using those manticore bodies for? Maybe we should go check.
Soup.
Soup! That's a really good idea.
That sounds good. I would like to try a manticore soup.
Shall we follow them and find out?
Yeah, but be careful because they can make you feel woozy sometimes.
Yeah.
But it was okay.
Was it a good woozy?
Well, you might throw up, but you know, I can take a lot.
Fair enough. Ooh, Glenn,
Yep.
will we have some chance to head into town for a bit?
Yep. So you
I'd
have
like
some
to
time.
buy a new cask. Because my cask of mead has been emptied and filled with manticore venom.
Yep.
If at all possible,
yeah.
I'd like to buy a small barrel full of mead.
So you go wandering into the town and trying to find which shops are actually open, which ones are shut. You contemplate going towards the tavern, but realize, hang on, you probably won't get a good deal from the tavern keeper since he doesn't seem to like you.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Yeah, such a weirdo, that guy.
That in character or out of character, you don't know why.
Well, it's bingo, so I'm going to say it's in character.
It's Silas. Obviously, it's in character.
Right here, so that's what I need to find. So, you eventually find a small shop where there are a couple that are working on wooden items, small chests and boxes are on display around the shop, and you notice that they've got some barrels and casks.
I'd like to pick one up to see if it's decent weight that I could put it on top of my backpack.
Yep.
And then I'd like to go to the guy who's manning the shop.
He sees you pick it up and watches as you approach and says, "After a cask, are you?"
Yeah. It seems mine is not suitable for consumption anymore. So I'm looking for a replacement.
Sure thing, we can give you that one right there. If you're only after the one, it'll be 3 silver pieces.
Okay. And I hand him 3 silver pieces.
He takes it, pockets it, and goes, "There anything else we can help you for?"
That depends what kind of stuff you have.
Well, anything that's made of wooden timber, bit of my trade being a carpenter all, and he points around the shop and says,
I look around and I go, good point.
"We have a couple of things that we obviously always have on hand, although we are replacing, obviously, after our problems with the manticores. Nearly anything timber was used in the barricade, so we're pretty short on barrels and chests and casks and the like, but we're trying to get our stock back up. Anything else that we don't have on stock, I can do a custom order if you're willing to come back for it."
Well, you definitely need barrels for all the beer.
He winks at you, Mug, and says, "Yes, we've got quite a lot of those to make. Bit of a backlog."
Good. I'm looking forward to sampling the fresh beer.
He grins and says, "You and me both, my friend, you and me both." He looks back at you, Silas, and goes, "Anything I can help you for?"
No, I think right now this is it.
He nods to you and says, "Well, if you and your friend need anything else, feel free to look around the shop, but I best get back to work. The barrels, unfortunately, haven't learned how to make themselves yet." So he goes back to his tools.
Okay, good luck. And with that, I just reckon that I return to the group. I do look around though to see if there's salesman who sells either magical gear or specifically weaponry.
You don't see any indications that there's anywhere in town that would have mages. No shops that would indicate that they sell anything magical at all. And you were also looking after.
The other thing I'm looking after is just mundane weaponry. basically.
Mundane weaponry. So I'll get you to do a perception seeing.
I shall look real good. 6 plus 4 plus 4. Perception, and I'm not particularly good at seeing, so no bonuses for seeing. Ooh. 17.
Right. You walk along the front of a mixture of now functioning shops and open buildings, and the occasional one that's been left boarded up and closed. You don't see any weapon shops themselves, but you do come across a smith. And it's not the main street that you find it on. It's kind of almost imperceptibly up around the back of a group of buildings.
Ooh, it's the off-brand back alley smith. Yeah, I'd like to head into the smithy shop.
So you walk in, and the smith is a small and cluttered building. It's got 2 furnaces that are... one of them's roaring with fire, the other one is silent, and there is a single young man who is working currently on items in the forge.
I'll just look around for a bit.
It takes him a while to realize that there's anyone in there with him. And it's only when he pulls a large piece of metal out, glowing red hot, and quenches it in water, that he looks up at you and says, "Anything you're after, or you just looking around?"
Mostly looking around. I did have one question.
And what's that?
How much would it be to make almost like a knife to put on my rifle?
He looks at you and looks at your rifle. That'd be a custom job. Would you want it to be a knife you can use as a knife, or just something that attaches permanently to your rifle?
It's specifically attached to my rifle, so that if anyone runs too close while I'm holding the rifle, I have something to protect myself.
Not made one of those before, but I could probably try and whip something up for you. Be a custom job. It's not like we have things like that around here every day.
No.
How long do you want it?
IRL is not really good with that. So it would be just
So
effective bayonet.
yeah, an effective bayonet with would be probably about 6 inches.
6 inches then.
Yeah.
Something like this, and he points out about 6 inches.
Yep. He thinks and then says, "Might take a while. I'll need to measure your weapon though.
Okay. And I hand him one of the two arquebuses that I have.
So he takes it and lays it out on a workbench and takes some string with knots at equal length around it and measures it off, making notes as he does. After he's done, he hands it back, goes and has a look out the back, and then comes back out and says, I can get that done for you. It will take a week, maybe 2. There's obviously a lot of work to go and get done at the moment.
Any way we could speed this up if I, for example, were to increase the price a bit?
As much as I'd like the money, it's not the money that's the problem. And he points at the other forge and he says, now if you know anyone who's handy with a hammer...
To be fair, and I pull my coat to the side a bit, revealing a forge hammer. I know my way around a forge. Maybe I can help.
He looks you up and down. Roll a communication persuasion check.
Okay. +3. I'm assuming I can't add anything for smithing.
Yeah, you actually add it for smithing because you're talking trade.
In that case, 15 if I did the math correct. Yes, I did the math correct.
So, I'm hearing myself in double now.
Hey,
He hears out your argument and then looks at the forge and says, I'll cut you a deal.
okay.
You help me get this current order done here and now, and we'll make your knife for your gun right after we finish.
Okay.
We have a deal?
Yeah, deal.
He holds his hand out, covered in
I
ash.
take it.
So he leaves you to get the forge going and then comes out with a bunch of materials and sets you to work, basically making everything from rings and hoops to go on barrels through to replacement hinges and latches for doors and other items that have been ripped apart to make the barricades.
I'm gonna assume that because I'm more of a gunsmith, most of my experience will be in the subtle mechanisms.
It
So specifically stuff like hinges and such would work, I guess.
Yep. So you take up the hinges and all the fiddly bits, the stuff that he doesn't seem to be very comfortable with, and help him blitz through the orders. Afterwards, he gathers up some more materials from out the back, and the two of you work on a fitting and a blade to connect to your arquebus. After it's done, he hands it over to you and says, well, you best test the thing and make sure that it fits proper. All in all, for that work and for the fact that you helped me, I'll only charge you 15 silver pieces for that.
I'm gonna give him 20.
He takes it and nods and says, appreciated, friend, especially in these times.
Right now, you need it more than I do.
He nods. If you want something to test it on, there's a couple of old targets out the back, mainly set up for swords and stuff, but I think you can still aim a
Yeah.
decent stab at it with this thing. Just make sure it doesn't come loose.
Okay. And I just like get the bayonet in place, and I I just noticed the suggestion from all in favor say aye. With that, I walk out and I just test on the targets a few times.
So you fix the bayonet and practice getting it on and off, and you test wielding your rifle as a effectively spear. It takes a bit of practice, but you kind of get the hang of it.
Yeah.
And with that,
How would I write down its stats on my sheet?
so basically rather than moving, you can actually fix the bayonet and it will turn your arquebus into a spear.
Ah. So it's an attachment that I can place during combat as
Yeah.
to not hurt myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really fucking useful.
So effectively, the way it's designed is that it's a ring that you first push over the muzzle of your rifle and then twist, and in twisting it locks into place.
Yes.
And once it's on, you can grab the rifle from the stock and effectively use it as a spear.
Awesome. Now to quickly look up the stats for spear so that I have it correct character sheet. Perfectly fine. With that, I'm just gonna like try and find the rest of the group and just join them again.
So while Silas has been extremely busy all day, what have the rest of you been up to?
Good. I've been trying to find ingredients either for foraging or like various shops for like healing potions.
Yeah. So you first start off. What I will do a. We'll go with a search seeing check. See how effective your search through town is.
$20.
Right. So you make your way through town and search for ingredients, search for any shops that perhaps have anything for sale, and occasionally just stick your head in and glance around some of the buildings that appear to be derelict. One that you look in is unsigned, but upon a glance around, very quickly you realize that the layout is very much almost medical on basis. And you slip in the door, and after a bit of rummaging around and searching, you find sort of hidden away up the back of some of the cupboards ingredients and herbs and powders, and you recognize some of them as what you would need to make some potions.
How much would it be for like around about 2 or 3 potions, depending?
You have enough there to make 3 full healing potions.
Sweet.
Basically, you know the recipe to mix them together, and as far as the recipe is concerned, just add water.
Ah. Is this a shop I went into, sorry, or?
So it's a derelict shop. There's no one in
No
it.
one.
As far as you can tell, the occupants probably didn't survive the early stages.
Well, then I'll take them and then have a look around, see if there's anything else that's useful.
Yep. After a bit of turfing around the shop, you don't find too much else that hasn't already been looted by the rest of the town during the few forays they would have made outside. And then you go upstairs and start exploring. There's a small apartment above the shop, probably what was occupied by the owner. Once again, it looks like it had been ransacked, and you're about to give up when you step on a creaky floorboard.
Uh-huh.
Pulling that away, you find that the owner had been storing a bit of a nest egg, and has put under the floorboard a pair of pouches. One clinks as you pick it up, the other one does not.
Ooh. Can I have a look in them?
Yep. The one that you pick up and clinks is filled with gold coins.
How
20,
much?
25 in all.
Cool. And what's another pouch?
The other one you open and you get an extremely strong whiff of spices.
Can I tell what it is, or just its spices?
By look and by smell, it seems to be spices from the south. As far as you can tell, or from your memory, those may be expensive.
Right. I will take them and join the others then.
Yep.
Hello.
Bonjour. Have fun.
Yeah, I got this, and I show off my new bayonet knife thing.
Ah, more things to hurt people with.
Well, it's specifically to make sure that I don't get hurt if someone gets too close where my rifle doesn't really aim as easily.
I suppose. Tactical. What have the rest of you's been up to?
I'm thinking Mug probably had like a really nice meal and a couple of good ales, and I'm not sure what else Mug would do. So he might take suggestions from people on what he should be doing if he feels bored.
Fight, bit, fight, bit, fight.
Oh my
bit.
gosh.
Are there any interested in that, Glenn?
Amongst those of the townfolk, there's not too many that seem all that interested in fighting. Amongst
Sad.
the crew, the two twins are always up for a spar.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
as the crew has begun finishing off the repairs that they need to the Cirrus,
Yeah.
they have taken to lounging around in the square, and occasionally a small ring forms and one of the twins will challenge someone to a bit of a brawl.
I mean, yeah. So Mug is probably training with them. How does that go?
So what I'll get you to do is a strength athletics. Although, actually, I think I should say stamina, because I believe...
Stamina. Oh.
Yeah,
Do I have a focus on that?
I believe you might. Because I don't think there's actually a focus for athletics. I think it's actually stamina.
And I add strength as well, right?
Yep, strength and your +2 for if you have stamina.
Oh, I have to see, but it is going to be.
Let me just...
Let me see if I have a stamina.
I'll double check your level 4 sheet because if it's on there. You've got. Sorry, it's Constitution stamina.
Oh, so am I adding Constitution to it?
Yeah,
Oh,
add your
it's okay. My
Constitution.
strength and Constitution is the same.
Yeah, and yes, you do have stamina.
Ah,
So +2 on that as well.
okay. Okay. So with the +2, it's going to be 17.
Right. So a couple of fist fights are arranged, and Mug, you do as exemplary as you always do. And then a
Yes.
few other challenges get proposed out of sheer boredom.
Yeah. And we are all shirtless and oiled up.
So one of the challenges that gets proposed by one of the board sailors is to fill up some of the empty barrels from the previous night's festivities with sand and then to race. Mug, you win the barrel race by sheer force of will. Where many of the others that are participating eventually tire and wind up dropping their barrels. At no point does Mug...
Mug is gone.
Oh, Mug is back.
I couldn't hear any of you, so that's why I reconnected.
Radio, that's right.
What happened?
So, started off with a couple of fistfights.
Yes.
And then afterwards, a still tipsy sailor suggests that you do a barrel race. So
Oh, yes,
you fill up the empty barrels from the previous night with sand, and then you shoulder them and begin running from one side of the square to the other. Halfway across the square,
reasonable.
one of the sailors drops his barrel first and is disqualified. The twins are right on your tail the entire time, but aren't able to overtake. Mug, you win.
Yeah.
And toss your barrel in victory.
Yeah. See, I'm the strongest of you all. Look at me. Mug is celebrating. Let's all drink together to my victory.
Plenty of the sailors cheered at that.
I'm sorry, I'm just making some tea.
All good. After a few hours, Bhajiri gathers up the crew and starts directing you to go back aboard. Some of the townsfolk bring carts over up alongside ship, and supplies are prepped to be loaded. The crew quickly gets the food and water and replacement supplies on board and finishes all preparations to get the ship underway.
Nice.
The other ship is still tied up, and you notice that there is now a small group that are sort of working their way up and down the length and taking notes and from what you can see, probably prepping to repair it.
Oh, we are repairing the ship.
From what you can see, it looks like they're at least taking the notes of what they need to repair the other ship. Once you're on board, Bhajiri sort of calls another one of his meetings and says, "We've spent a little longer here than we originally planned, but we got what we needed and did a good deed on the way." And he sort of looks at the four of you as if he's questioning just how good a deed it was or how much of it was dumb luck.
We did very well. We're heroes, aren't we?
he
Damn right we are.
he nods and says, "Yes, the crew can all take faith that, as far as this town is concerned, we are indeed heroes. That said, we do have a mission to get to, and we should be best underway. Don't want to miss our chance of trying to find what our friends are trying to smuggle back from Freeport."
Yeah, we need to be heroes elsewhere as well. And fight strong people.
Specifically strong people. We don't fight the weak.
No. Weak people don't need to be fight. Real heroes fight the strong people. Weak people are not worth it.
And with
You still insist on going after the children?
What?
It's
What
a
children?
testament
What?
to how strong the kid is.
Children are exactly my height and size. Therefore, it's an even match.
And I have orders that I need to help my crewmates, which is bingo. So
Alright. He's also your
I like
crewmate. He's part
children.
of this team.
Children are nice and small.
yeah, you can throw them further.
Mug, there is no way that child is as strong as you are.
What? Who's as strong as me?
She said that the kid is as strong as you.
No!
Oh, can I fight that kid?
Yes.
No!
Oh, where is that kid? Is it you? And he points at Bingo.
Yes!
Bingo, I'm going to fight you.
Why? I may be
Because
underage.
you're as strong.
I'm not as
What?
strong as you.
Don't lie to me. I'm not going to believe you. They just said that you are as strong as me, and I have to prove that's wrong.
Okay. So, I guess, 3, 2, 1, go! And he like runs away.
Are you saying you're scared of me?
Yes!
I mean, that's understandable.
I'm just gonna stay up here in the rigging! This is fine!
Right, so see, even strong people are afraid of me, so I'm the strongest.
Yep, you are. No hand-to-hand combat necessary.
Well, if you insist, but, I'm always ready to help check.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind, thank you! I'm still gonna stay up here just for a little while.
That was a good move, Wisp.
Oh. When are we getting ready to leave anyway?
Oh, who knows? Might as well go out.
So, Wisp, just as you say that, the lines get cast off.
I'm gonna say, I reckon right now is the moment that we leave. What's
Thanks.
gonna happen with our ship? Like, our secondary ship? Is that staying here? Are we taking it along because we didn't sell it here?
The old fella that you remember recruiting back in the last port of call you were in,
Ah, yes.
pipes up from where he's sitting and smoking a pipe and says, "Captain thought it was best to leave it here and get it repaired. There's at least a carpenter in town, and I heard word of a smith, so they may not be shipwrights in their own, but they'll be able to get it mostly back in order."
Ah, and then we can see about selling it.
I believe that might be the captain's plan.
Captain did wise then.
He just continues puffing on his pipe and just nods sagely.
That's his whole job on this ship, I believe.
Racking your brains, you actually haven't seen him do much in the way of physical labor.
Then again, he looks like he'd break his arms trying to lift a cannonball. Quick question.
Yep.
So our mission. I have a note here that says that we were going to, at some point in our mission, try to annoy someone from Bakar, but I don't specifically recall what the mission was because we were busy fighting manticores.
So, racking your brains now that the fun in the town is over.
We don't even know what the name is of the town where we left our secondary ship.
You presume that at least the captain who knew where the town was would remember its name. At the very least, he should remember where you parked the ship.
Okay, that's fine.
Or at least kept a record on a map somewhere. The last you remember is that the mission that you had before you bumped into the pirates in the first place was to try and find where the Shayak had potentially a convoy coming back from Freeport, and to find out what was on the convoy.
Oh, yes. Wait, where did my note come from that we...
If it was annoying someone back in Becaird, that might have had something to do with shipping a head back to...
Yeah, but when we got the mission briefs, there was something about an associate of my father's. Not
Ah, you had a different mission brief for that. Let me just look that one up as well. So that was from the letters that you found.
Oh, yes.
And it was that there was an associate of your father's that had a smuggling operation. Let me just find where I put the notes.
It was somewhere along the same route or something, right?
So you're aware that there was a smuggling operation not too far from the route that you were going to be on, and that there was a agent of your father's that was at the last port of call that he had been sent to was to the south, and I think from memory it was Fort Hearth.
I just sent the map again. So we were at Fort Hearth?
So you were heading from Port Marley down towards the canyons of Ghoul.
Yes.
Which is where the convoy was meant to be heading south from Freeport.
And that's the Shayak.
Yep.
Okay.
And then from there, you were going to head down towards Fort New Hearth to try and find the contact that had been working for the diplomat back in Port Marley.
Okay. In that case, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be just because the name, at some point, we need to find the mines of Fifi.
You're not fully aware of where the smuggling operation that your father had organized was, but you are fairly certain that the contact would know.
That's useful.
So, with the ship now under full steam, you take to the air again, and with clear skies, you make your way the rest of the way down towards the canyons of Ghoul. It takes another 6-7 days in the air and things return to relative normal. So what do you get up to while on board? Unless you fall into a regular routine and don't do an awful lot of entertaining things.
I like to think that Silas is just basically trying to engineer ways to upgrade the ship.
Yep. Lady Alara spends time with you, Bingo, and keeps her promise and actually reads to you from the encrypted section of the book.
Ooh. Could you also fashion some more grenades? Because he's got some stuff.
Yep.
And he's usually got bits and pieces on him.
So you work out that you've gathered up pretty much almost everything you need for potentially a second beetle, except that you're missing a couple of gemstones.
Whoa.
The instructions in the back of the book also have other experimental ideas that aren't, as far as the author of the book was concerned, actually tested yet. You kind of get the feeling.
We'll be doing some of those.
You kind of get the feeling that this book was, or these notes were written sometime just before the collapse of the city.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Bingo at some point specified asking about the Great Collapse, but I don't.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was cooking, so I was being really noisy, so I muted myself.
So,
Because I know we'd got told about it, I couldn't remember what we'd been told.
What you had been told was basically what the townsfolk had passed down to them, that at the point in time that the old city collapsed, the city had been built into the canyon itself, and a series of earth-shaking tremors sort of ripped through the city, which then started to cause the walls of the canyon to collapse in on top of the city itself. Those that had survived the original calamity had made it out and had rebuilt the town where it currently is located on the cliff face. They don't know what the cause was, but they are aware that the original population was halved in the collapse.
Might have solved the mystery.
Was there not also something about a mage's college being there?
There was at least one person who had mentioned that there was the only mages that had ever been in the place were a college in the old city, and as Silas has noticed on his trip through, there are no mages in the current town.
Monk doesn't think too much about this. It's difficult to think that much.
Thinking hurts.
Yeah, Mug leaves it to the others to think about it.
So, the book that Lady Alara reads to Bingo contains a group of experimental grenades, as well as sort of more mundane tricks and techniques into better tinkering with items. She takes the time to actually convert most of it into text that you'll actually understand by reading it.
Ooh.
And in doing so creates a manual that sort of helps you with your tinkering.
It's a grenade cookbook.
Oh my god, it is. It's a grenade cookbook.
It's a tinkerer's manual, so you, anytime you're tinkering with grenades or with any other contraptions, especially clockwork ones, you will get a +2 as if you have a focus.
Cool. Can he make some extra normal ones as well? And then that's pretty much all he can do.
Yep. So you can
Cool.
spend the time to make some.
Yeah.
Scavenging around the whole ship, you really only find the materials to make effectively fire grenades using some of the techniques that you use from the book. And you do so by effectively stealing gunpowder from the hold.
All right, 5. Cool.
So what I'll get you to do is I'll get you to roll an alchemy check to work out how many you make.
Mhm.
So off the top of my head, intelligence alchemy.
Mhm. 15.
15. So you will get 3 grenades out of that.
Yay. Excellent. Cool. Yeah, that'll be what he does.
Not a problem. So a couple of days have passed in travel, and eventually you approach the canyons, which are made up of large cracks that rip through the what would normally be smooth sands below you. These giant canyons are large enough for almost several ships to fly side by side. Below the ridgelines, allowing any vessel effectively to stay out of sight until the last moment. Bhajiri takes a lot of care as he approaches, and then begins lowering the ship so that eventually even the Cirrus dips below the ridgelines and into the canyons themselves. The crew quieten and are less rowdy as you make your way along these winding and sometimes turning back on themselves canyon passages. Several of them have posted up around the ship and are keeping a careful watch of both the ridgeline above and down any of the sudden corners and bends, just to alert anyone and everyone if there is any movement or sign of anyone else in there. After the first few hours, it's quiet and tense, and you can see even Bhajiri is sort of looking at a map that's been held out for him by Merrisea, and then back at the campus and then up to the canyon walls, and he's frowning. I will get everyone to do a perception hearing check.
Ooh. Not going to work.
Perception.
So
we're doing well.
that's a 7 from Silas, a 9 from Wisp, a 10 from Bingo, and a 10 from Mug.
Ooh. Ooh, Mug is perceptive.
No, Mug is simply.
The last time this happened.
Mug is simply less unperceptive.
Radio. So, the canyons are silent to the large part. There's no movement apart from the occasional bit of sand that gets blown and tumbles down the canyon walls. The only sound you hear is the engine of the vessel you're on and the sound of the rigging as the wind that blows through the canyons itself sort of snaps the ropes and whistles. Next to you at some point, Alara sort of perks up and cocks her head to the side slightly and looks at you, Silas, and goes, "Did you hear that?"
No?
And she looks at you and looks around at the rest of the crew and shrugs.
What did you hear?
Almost sounded like the well, nah, it could only have been the wind, but the sounded like someone dropping timber onto a deck.
You know what? We should have a look around. And with that, I'm gonna walk topside and just walk around the edges of our ship
Yep.
and like try to see if there's anything either on our deck or on a different ship.
You walk around the Cirrus and you don't see anything out of the ordinary. And you look along the ridge lines and along the canyon to the front and to behind you, and don't initially see anything. And then you hear another very, very soft thunk from below. Leaning out over your ship and looking down, you can make out a pair of balloons far, far below you, actually on the canyon floor.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
And you realize that there are at least 3 ships currently, balloons still filled, but at the bottom of the actual canyon. You have flown clean over the top of them.
What colors are they flying? Can I look through the scope of my arquebus to see?
Looking through the scope of your arquebus, you can see their balloons and the shape of them. 2 of them seem to be almost just trading vessels of some sort or another. The balloons are quite wide and less streamlined than warships. One of them is clearly a warship.
Do we know what nation, or is it Shayak? Maybe?
From the way you can see it from above, and from the ships that you've seen before, you believe it's a Shayak frigate.
I'm gonna turn around.
Yep.
And I'm gonna yell at the top of my lungs.
Yep.
Get ready! It's time to fight!
Oh, there's a fight! What's going on? Shouts back Mug.
Shall I drop the really, really big explodey thing?
Hold on. What the hell are you talking about?
Down there is a Shayak ship. They are the assholes we are hunting. Right now, they don't know we're here.
Uh-huh.
We can do several things. We can fulfill the contract are working on and murder them,
Mhm.
or
Let's murder them. Let's murder them. That sounds fun.
Or
the other option is we land next to them and try. Last time we met them,
Oh, you were
they
cutting out.
shot up the entire town.
We were cutting out for a moment. What were you saying?
I'll wait 1 second. I'll just have to say goodnight to Eric.
like a moment's silence.
I think he's just saying goodnight.
I'm back. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
So now that I returned, did I miss much?
Nope. We were waiting to hear what
for
side.
you.
Okay.
We are waiting for the decision maker of the group.
In that case, I'm gonna look around at like you three, and I'm gonna go. Well, we can go and talk to the people that shot up town last time we saw them, or we can.
Isn't that us?
Hmm?
Isn't that us? Don't we shoot at things like towns and?
Yes, but this time it was them shooting at us.
Oh, that's just rude.
Yep. And right now they don't know we're here. I think your suggestion was pretty much excellent.
Mine.
Yeah, should we throw the big boom at them?
Yeah, let's throw the big boom at them.
You're
Big
welcome to make the
boom.
biggest boom you can.
So are we going to boom them up?
I mean, I think we should. I think it's our moral obligation to do it, and also it is our job that we have been told to do.
Can we use cannons as well? I mean,
Yeah.
I want to shoot at them too.
Well, what we can do is we drop the first booms, and whatever's left standing will cannon that.
Silas,
Close range cannon.
as you're giving your
Dibs on cannons.
Silas, as you give your instructions, you feel a slight tugging on your sleeve.
I look at the tugging.
Sen is standing next to you, and he looks up and says,
Okay.
"Captain wants to know what the big fuss is about."
Tell Captain to prepare the ship for a fight.
Ooh.
The Shia
Yeah,
carrier.
we are going to shoot up that ship.
Sen just nods and says, "Of course," and then he turns and runs up towards the captain and passes your message back. And with that, Bhajiri swings the ship around and begins slowly lowering it. The crew start to rush around to battle stations, and the cannons are rolled out into position.
Good. I take my position with the cannon where I've stood the last few battles as well, because that's my personal cannon now.
Fair enough. Staring out over the side, you realize that the frigate appears to be rising up off the sands. The other two ships have ropes that have strapped them down.
I'm gonna look at Bingo,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna point at the frigate that's slowly getting it ready to move up.
Is that the biggest one?
Yep. In length, it's twice the size of the other two.
Shall we make it go boom? Oh
As
wait,
big as you can.
wait, hang on. This thing will lock onto a heartbeat, right? But there's people on it, so it'll look for a person and then it'll go boom.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to find a person.
There is people on there, yeah.
Yeah,
So just gotta make sure we aim for like the deck.
Like, this isn't another abandoned ship situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just shoot it up.
We'll find out when we count the corpses on what's left of the ship.
Okay.
Yeah, but you guys count corpses. I'm not counting. I don't know how to count beyond 5.
That's all you need. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom.
You can count the first 5, Mug.
Okay. So can I will prepare the cannons, and Mug is running off to prepare the cannons.
Good.
Okay. So I'll drop it, and we'll wait for it to go boom, and then we'll make more explosions. Okay. Well, Cletus, you were a good friend. I shall miss you. I shall try to make another.
So Bingo, you activate.
Well,
your-
he's gonna hover over the edge. He's gonna look over the edge and make sure that he's gonna aim towards where, like, so it's not gonna bounce off the balloon. He wants to aim for where it's gonna hit the deck.
Yep.
Okay.
So Bhajiri is aiming to bring the ship down to hopefully come parallel. He seems to be struggling quite a bit to keep away from the canyon walls, and there's a couple of close
Ooh.
scrapes on the way
Careful,
down.
Captain.
The
All right.
From where you are now, you have dropped quite far into the canyon, and you can now see crew rushing around on the decks of the frigate as it's rising up towards you.
Do they
Alright.
look like they've seen us?
They have definitely seen you at this stage, and they are
All right.
pulling out their cannons and preparing and
Taking
trying.
aim.
Yep.
Pushing the
What
button.
range are we talking?
Sorry.
Is this within range of, say, the shot?
At this stage, you could try and do a long-range arquebus shot.
In that case, I'm gonna look at Bingo, and I'm just gonna ask Bingo, which part of the ship do you want to aim?
The back, because that's where the captain is.
Okay. In that case, I'll point my
Usually.
arquebus.
If he's steering. If he's not steering, he's a crap.
Yep, agreed.
Okay.
I'm gonna look around at the front of the ship. Look for the biggest, baddest dude there,
Yep.
and just aim for the kneecap.
Go for it.
Yeah.
This is an aim shot.
I let you shoot yours, and then I'll do.
What
I
did you
feel
get?
like this is my legacy incoming.
Oh dear.
So I rolled 3 6s.
Hey!
I get to add
Oh.
11 to that.
Right. You see a heavily armored and rather large warrior who is shoving sailors into place and barking orders up the front of the ship. And you
Not so
decide
much
this is the
longer.
one that you want to shoot at.
Yep.
You sight down your scope, hold your breath, and then empty out your lungs, and then keep your sight and shift it slightly down until you're aiming where his knee should be when he stops moving,
Yep.
and then pull the trigger.
Awesome. Can I use my stunt points, by the way?
Yes, you can.
I'd like to rapid reload.
Yep.
Pierce armor.
Yep.
I have 4 points left. I'd like to dual strike.
Yep.
So I'd like to hit any enemy that's within a reasonable distance that I could hit him with the same shot.
Yep.
And that's my 6 points.
So just after you shoot, you keep an eye on him through the scope, and you see him grab another sailor and pull him in close to start yelling at him. And the bullet passes clean through this sailor's chest and then down into your original target's kneecap, knocking him down.
I start laughing maniacally.
Woo! Alright, my guy.
Your turn.
My guy! Yeah. Okay. He'll push the button and roll it into a ball and take careful aim and he'll throw it towards where there are people on the ship.
Bingo, you aim for the largest number of people you can find on the ship. I will get you to roll a perception attack on that.
Okay.
Sorry, accuracy for the attack.
Oh, I got good accuracy. Okay. 16.
Noted. You bundle this clockwork beetle up and
I shall miss you.
push the gemstone in the head of the creature inwards, and you hear it click as you do so, and the gems begin to glow.
Whoa.
You then throw it with all the strength you've got down towards the ship.
Whee!
The beetle sails just underneath the rigging and the balloon and hits the deck and rolls along before quickly unfolding into its beetle form and rushing towards the nearest sailor and clawing its way up his leg. You see him like screaming and grabbing and trying to catch this thing before all of a sudden an explosion rips him apart and a number of sailors near him, and flames erupt all over the deck of the ship.
Yay!
Oh yeah.
Not gonna lie, I was hoping for bigger.
Is it time for the cannons yet?
Yeah!
With that, the ship is now in line with the side of the frigate, and I will get you to roll initiative.
Oh, haha. So now I can add 2 to my initiatives, right?
Yes, you can.
Because I took that thing.
Dexterity is 3.
Ooh, Mug now has decent initiative.
Wait, did I do that correct? 16, yes. I mathed it correctly.
So let me just pull up my notes as well. Because you're up against one of these things.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Somehow when he has specific notes for them, that could be bad news.
Oh, I've got notes for all the ships.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes it slightly better. Because
Actually,
I, as a DM, don't actually have many notes on it.
I will get you to roll a military lore if you want,
Ooh, yeah.
because you will know this
Ooh.
stuff.
Yes, I'd like to smarty pants make smart. plus 3 plus 2 is a 10, 14, 17, 19 total.
Right. You're very familiar with frigates, at least enough to know that there will be some differences between the nations, but you can presume that the frigate that you've just pulled up alongside will have 25 cannons per side and is a bigger ship than the Cirrus. You have, however, gotten the drop on them.
I'm gonna mention it. Like, I reckon the kid is running back and forth between like
He's
several
basically,
people and the captain.
yeah, he's running around as messenger boy.
Sen,
He
I'm gonna flag him over.
he runs over.
Could you ask the captain to try and maneuver it in a way where we're never fully broadsided by them?
He nods and races on to pass off your message.
Good.
Right.
And with that, we
So
get ready to kill a ship, I think.
we have, in order, a 19 for Silas.
No, I had a 16. The 19 was the military law.
Ah, sorry. 16 for Silas, and then 14 for Mug. And then 14 for Mug. And then we have Whisp with 12 and Bingo with a 6.
Woo!
Nice.
They got that. And your allies got that. So, first on up is Silas.
I'm gonna look around one more time, and ask crew, like the nearest crew, which would probably be Wisp, Bingo, and Mug.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask them: do we want to take them down entirely?
Yeah.
I think Mug is already trying to shoot cannons, so
Pretty sure their deck's already on fire.
Yeah, but there's like a difference between wanting to specifically kill everybody there, or give at least one of them a chance to give us secrets.
Mug just wants to shoot cannons. It doesn't make strategic decisions.
Do you want to go kidnap them?
No, it's more taking them prisoner and murdering them when they have given us all information. That way we can make it a slower, painful death. Much more fun.
So you want us to kill from a distance or go over there without destroying the ship then?
Well, that's basically my question. And with that, because I'm gonna have to need to shoot it at some point,
Yep.
I'm gonna specifically shoot the cannon at what I'd assume is the most logical place for the black powder storage.
Yep.
Which is good because I get 4 stunt points if my attack hits.
Ooh.
Plus, I reckon it's accuracy and then black powder.
It is accuracy and black powder.
Okay, that's 12 plus 7, 19 total.
That will be a hit.
In that case, I'm gonna target the magazine, Jeeves.
So yes, you can do that. So you shout at the crew that are helping you aim and arm the cannon, and you sight exactly where you would logically put the magazine, and then ignite the cannon.
Yep, and that's then double 10d6 damage, right?
Yep. So
So
10d6 plus
20d6. Do I actually roll 20d6?
You can roll 10d6 and do double damage. If you have 20 and you really want to do the math,
I have 44, and yet I'd like to roll at least the 20 that I can roll.
you can roll 20 dice if you like.
Oh. That's a lot of sixes.
That's why that's a 4 stunt point.
6, 7.
And plus me, that skill's needed when you go up against bigger ships.
You can continue while I'm doing maths, by the way, because this might take a while. Holy shit! The lowest damage die is a 3.
Nice.
Mug, you see Silas shoots, and you're up next.
Yeah, I can cannonball them. So
Yep,
is it, I think it was accuracy.
it is
right?
accuracy. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't a very good. Why can't I shoot as good as Silas? This is unfair.
Well, you can add +1 for aiming.
Oh, because I've been aiming. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah, I didn't aim
So-
with my 19.
Yeah, counted as a 20.
Oops. The 21
That's
because rogue.
14.
Yep, that'll hit.
Yay! Is it 20d6?
It will be 10d6.
Ah.
I
Yeah.
only got that many d6s because it was a 4 stunt.
Okay. Fine. But mine is going to be magical.
Yes.
It's going to be a magical cannonball.
Yep.
Do I add perception to damage the same way I would do with my pistol?
Yes, you do.
Yes! Triple digits, baby! 101 points of damage. Glenn.
Yep, that's fine. You see
second
this
time.
shot slam, punching through the armor plates on the side of the ship, and cause a absolute ton of damage. You see splinters fly off. So that was 101. So removing the armor, it does that.
Question.
Yep.
Like, in general, does pierce armor work on ships?
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know.
Do I add anything to the roll, like perception?
Perception if you have it. It usually doesn't make a heap of difference with cannons, but
No.
Well, for me, it was the specifically the fact that I got to add 3 for perception was enough to make it triple digit damage. Glenn.
Yep.
20. Oh, right. I can't count this. How much is this?
that's
It's
right.
10, 20.
So 6 plus 5 plus 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1
So,
plus
I think it's 31.
34.
I found out that
Oh,
if you have
34,
typed it
okay.
like this, you can copy it into your calculator or computer.
Oh wow. Too late for that now.
That would have been faster than what I did. So
Yeah.
34 damage.
Yes, but that's magical damage.
Yes,
so,
it is.
Please describe the magical cannonball.
Silas, you turn to watch the next cannon go off, and it's Mug. The first thing you
Mug is
know,
shouting, "Take that!"
the first thing you notice is that there is a glowing handprint on the side of the cannon, as Mug is holding it. And then the ball of shot that comes flying out of the cannon is glowing as it hurtles towards the frigate and punches
Nice.
in the side. It where your shot originally punched Silas, it cracked and crushed its way through the armor. Mugshot seems to melt through the armor.
Nice.
Nice.
So,
Are we trying to take them down, or are we trying to get close enough that they can come on board here and we can start fighting them?
To be honest, at this point, Silas is just enjoying shoot things.
So you just want to take them down then?
Well, might as well.
I think you might.
Mug just wants to shoot.
Because right now, Bingo wants to create boots. Mug wants to shoot cannons, and Silas wants to shoot cannons. So you get to make choices, and the rest will just follow.
Yeah.
so they have how many down the side? Yep. Right. They're out of action. They're out of action. Yep, you really got the drop on them. So, you see two of the Kraninkurus actually abandon their posts and start running. And out of the
We are
25
intimidating them.
cannons on the side of the ship, only 5 of them open up.
Huh.
Ooh.
And now I need to get all my dice because some of those hit. And bear with me.
Maths incoming.
I'll be using stuff like Roll20 when it comes to when galleons and stuff come into this game,
Smart.
because then it can do the math for me.
Yeah, cannons are difficult.
Cannons are splody.
Right. The best bit about putting it into an Excel spreadsheet, though, is I just put equals in front and it tells me how much damage that did. Cirrus has that much armor, so that. And all up, they did 86 damage to the Cirrus.
Ooh.
So, 5 cannons,
they
one.
are damaging us as well.
Yep, 5 cannons open up one after the other, each of them hitting the Cirrus and punching holes in the timbers. One of them goes skittering
that's
across
okay.
the deck. You take almost as much damage as you've given back out, and they only opened up with 5 cannons.
Wait, so our other cannons are not fighting at all?
Not yet, they're not. The next up is Wisp.
Are we shooting them to get out of the sky, or are we going to try and get them? I don't know. I feel like if we're close enough, I want to try and lasso one of them.
No one really knows what we're doing. Just shooting cannons at them at this point.
Okay, if we do get close enough, I do want to try something like that, but just for now, I'll shoot then, like with a cannon.
Yep.
So you'd like to board them eventually?
Potentially, if they get close enough, I'd like to try and lasso them.
Oh, that works.
That's if we haven't destroyed them by then. Right.
So if you're using the cannon, it will be accuracy to attack. If you're doing anything else, we can work out how that works.
14 plus aim is 16,
That is definitely a hit.
and it's 10, yeah? Oh gosh.
If you got less than 10, we can roll it. If you got less than 10 dice, you can just roll it in batches.
Yeah, just saying it does take a while, so it's alright.
That's right. I knew that when I was putting cannons in.
I at some point need to make a cannon that's like double the amount because I want to use all of the 6s in out. Glenn.
Let's just say that things will get complicated and messy when you get stuff like galleons and battleships.
We'll at some point either need to get really good at tactics or really strong cannons.
Right.
I heard a dog owl.
Oh, sorry, it's my dog.
No worries, no worries. I was enthusiastic about getting a dog.
Aww.
It is a cute dog owl. Or at least I assume as much from cute noises.
Can I pinpoint attack that as well?
Sorry?
Pinpoint attack, can that get added as well?
Yep.
Oh! I forgot to pinpoint attack.
I'll change how it works ever so slightly when it comes to the ships, because there is no way technically your character is faster than a ship. But you are on a faster ship.
So you'll use it as in if your ship is faster than that ship.
Yep.
That works.
That comes to 46.
46. Noted. Where have I got the damage for them? And another 46 off that. So that's now that. Noted. And that brings up the rest of your cannons, which are now all going to open up. Which is why I've now opened Roll20 to do all this and make my life a hell of a lot easier. Because you have a further... Who's on cannons at the moment? You got Silas, Bingo, Wisp, and Mug. 4 cannons. That leaves you another... This is not my strong point at this time of night.
It is late now.
To be fair, maths isn't my strong point at any time of day, so well done.
So -4 of you, 5 cannons. So 5 cannons are going to roll to attack. Right. That is 3 hits, of which one of them got a mega stunt and is hitting the armor, hitting the magazine as well.
Oh, no.
Actually, no, 2 of them stunted, but one of them only got that. But let me just double check what the other stunt is, because it may have a similar effect. What can he get for 2? He can get pierce armor, so yep, he's using pierce armor.
Ruh-roh.
So, based on that, the first one is doing 10d6. That's going to be a roll. And does 88 damage minus the armor. The second one is going to roll. He just does regular damage. That makes it 20, 30. Yep. And then the fourth one is going to roll, and he's piercing armor. Timo, you hold the record still for most damage done by cannon.
Yeah. I am proud of that achievement.
Let's try and break it.
Oh yes,
The
definitely.
only good competition is yourself.
Yep.
2, so that's dropped.
I also don't like the fact that the enemy is trying to compete in the race.
Yeah, like let's kill them so that they will know
Yeah.
not to bother.
Yeah, I'd prefer if they attempt to just roll all ones for their shots.
We'll see how that goes.
Killing them is the kinder option, really.
Yeah. At some point, it starts to get hurtful when they kill themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't know why you're over there, but so that's your allies, and that finally brings you to bingo.
Hee! Can I cannon specifically towards their balloon?
Yep, you can angle up and aim at their balloon.
Yay! Alright, cool. Right, how many am I rolling?
You'll just roll an accuracy attack.
Okay.
So there's 8d6.
14.
Yep,
that's a hit, so that will be 10d6 worth of damage.
It's also an aimed shot, so +2.
Oh, okay. 6, 12, 8, 3. Ah! 36 with the +2.
Right. Well, that's hilarious. 36 with a +2.
Yes.
Multiply by 2 because you hit a weak spot.
Woo!
So So you did 72 damage.
Ooh!
Nice.
I'm coming for our own record.
Oh, wait, Bingo was before me.
No, after. I'm at the end.
Yep, Bingo is one of the last
Oh,
ones.
you're right, yeah.
Bingo rolled a 6, where you rolled a 14.
Aww.
Yep.
It's okay.
Bingo.
I don't need to go first. I just need to do the most damage.
Good luck.
Is it bad if I point out then that you didn't succeed in
Right.
that? Then again, you also threw a grenade.
I had to get rid of my friend.
You murdered your friend.
I did, and it was a glorious death.
It's the way Bingo wants to die as well.
I know, screaming with everyone around you on fire.
So, Bhajiri, as soon as you pass behind the frigate, turns the Cirrus almost a full 90 degrees and brings you in right behind her. And with that, Silas, you're up.
Oh, yes. I'm gonna do. First off, I have a question.
Yep.
Is there a loaded cannon near me?
Currently, no. All the cannons on this side of the ship have fired.
Damn it. Okay. In that case, I'm gonna reload the cannon.
Yep. So you and the crew reload. That brings you to Mug.
Yeah, I guess we are all reloading. It takes time to reload it, doesn't it?
Yep. It pretty much takes most of an action to reload a cannon.
Glenn,
Yep.
could the people that stand with me, because we have 3 men per cannon.
Yep. They can reload. You can do a different action while they're reloading.
So while they reload, I can shoot with my arc, for
Yep.
example.
Yes, you can.
In that case, if that's true, I'd like to use that action in my turn.
Yep. Go for it.
Okay, I'd like to specifically aim.
Yep.
Are there any dudes looking like they're better with cannons?
At the moment, the decks are an absolute mess. Some of their cannons aren't even rolled out yet, and there's absolute pandemonium.
Okay.
Yay.
I'd like to take one of the guys that stands near a set of cannons,
Yep.
specifically the one either in the middle of reloading or the one who took aim on the last shot,
Yep.
and I'd like to shoot him in the face.
Yep.
Specifically that area where it...
So roll your attack.
Okay, that is if my laptop cooperates with me and shows me what I add. That is 6 plus 3 plus 3 plus 5 plus 2. Also, it's a shot. 21 total.
Okay, roll your damage.
Okay, that's with 3 stunt points.
Yep, spend them as you will.
I'm sort of going to assume this guy... Wait, how would disarming work when they're standing at a cannon?
You can spend it, and I can definitely use it.
Okay, so it wouldn't just be 2 wasted points.
No.
Okay, in that case, I'd like to see what happens when I disarm this guy. And also, I'd like to... Last point.
I missed what was the last point.
Rapid reload.
Yep. So,
Okay.
while your crew is busying pulling back the cannon and reloading, you unsling your arquebus and take sight down your scope, find a target in the absolute pandemonium, and pull the trigger. On the deck of the enemy frigate, a sailor is carrying a cannonball and trying to shove it down the muzzle of one of the freshly fired cannons. only to catch a bullet clean in the face. And as he pitches sideways off the ship, he takes the cannonball with him.
Oh, I love that.
Nice.
Oh, that's amazing.
With that, we've got Mug. Are you doing anything or just helping the crew reload your cannon?
Can I? I'm not sure if I can do anything else. Help.
You
help
can yell at them real
reload.
hard.
Yeah, I'm probably. Well, Mug is
Oh.
probably just excited, but also angry. Oh, why can't you do it faster? I want to shoot again. I want to shoot again. Let's shoot. Let's shoot.
You could use the help action on someone else who can do something.
Like help them reload faster,
It's
or
wait, what is it called? That thing to. Is it called help in this?
I'll double check and see if it has it. Helps from memory D&D, but...
Oh, shit. No, I had the setup stunt in mind. But that's a stunt, so
yeah,
that
no,
won't
it
work.
is a stunt, yep.
Nope. I thought
yeah,
that
no.
was just a major action. Sorry. My bad.
no? I can use the ready action, but once per turn. I
Yep.
don't know if that does anything.
The ready
It's a free
action's
action.
pretty much drawing or sheathing a weapon or grabbing an item.
Oh. So that won't help.
Yep.
Reload the cannon.
So you...
But I'll be ready.
Yep, Mug, you help the crew reload your cannon.
Yeah. So I can't shoot at the
At
with a
the
pistol. That would take an action.
it would take an action, and I mean you could shoot, but
But then I can't shoot with a cannon next.
you'd still be able to shoot because your crew would be not repairing, but loading the cannon.
Oh,
regardless
I think
of what
you
you
were
do.
cutting out quite a bit.
Sorry, the crew on the cannon would be reloading it regardless of what you're doing.
Oh, so I can shoot at them with a pistol
You can try.
while I'm waiting for the cannon.
Yep, you can.
You could even, after you shoot, use your minor action pistol
Sorry, use my minor action.
to reload the pistol. Because that's what you learned on this level up.
Oh yeah, Mug wants to try shooting at them.
Yep.
see if he can. Yeah, that's just normal. Stand. Oh, we'll see if this is good enough. Activated. Yeah, so you just add the accuracy to this.
All good.
You don't add aim to this one. Do you?
You can do because you won't have moved or done anything.
Okay. 15.
Okay. It's a long shot, and the crew are a lot tinier than the bottles you were aiming at earlier.
But
But you-
tries his best.
You see a crew member stop to grab something, or you're not quite sure what, but while he stopped, you take the opportunity and squeeze the trigger and fire in his direction. And hit.
Yes. Take that.
Yay!
Roll your damage.
Yeah.
Mental note. I need to keep adding
yeah,
this to...
that's a good one. Yeah. So that's 10 points of damage.
Noted.
Magical damage.
Yep. He hits the deck in surprise and shock.
And I'm reloading.
Yep.
Yeah. See what we can do.
So he falls back, drops to the floor, looks up and just sees Mug smugly reloading his pistol.
Just wait for more. I have more where it came from.
I think everyone on our side of the battle's looking quite smug right now.
Yep. Also, Is Mug within range for me to freely hand a bullet?
Yes. Well, not so much as the hand, but you can toss one, and it wouldn't
Could
be
I,
difficult
like,
to catch.
Could I pull like one bag with like one pouch with a bullet and some gunpowder
Yep.
from my bag that copies ammo
Yes, you can.
and toss it towards Mug
Ooh.
Yep.
Oh,
just to make sure that Mug doesn't
nice
run out
one.
of bullets.
Nice one, thanks.
You're welcome.
And with that, it is now down to Wisp.
Also, Mug, you've come to the point where you now need to count how many bullets you shoot and how many you have on.
Oh no, that's the most difficult part.
Oh, that's the out of character thing. Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So it now comes to Wisp. It is also the way Bhajiri has turned the ship. It is reasonably close.
Close enough to try and lasso someone.
Yes,
Yeah.
there is grappling hooks and so on that have been stashed and tied near the sides of the ship for whenever you need to either board another ship or if you need to pull yourself into a berth.
What about pulling someone over?
Yep, you can try and aim for someone in particular and yank them off the ship. I'll get you to roll an accuracy on that.
$18.
Yep. So you grab one of the grappling hooks and spin it overhead and hurl it. And it reaches its extent and swings and latches around the neck of one of the crew on the other ship, who is caught completely off guard and starts to grab and pull at it.
I was going to try to pull him over. Let me hangs.
The momentum of the ship quickly pulls him off his own feet and he starts dragging across the deck.
Can I point and laugh?
You can.
I'd like to point and laugh.
Can I like implore the others to try and help me pull this guy?
A nearby crewman, thinking that you mean to try and pull the ships together, rushes over and begins helping you yank. Let me just see what happens with that.
Well.
The sailor that you've lassoed.
Continue doing that. I want a fist fight with them as well. After we fire them with cannons.
The sailor that you grab gets slammed into the side of his ship. And then over the railing.
Try and get him up as fast as possible.
Yep. You pull the rope up. And eventually get the body of the sailor that you've accidentally hung.
Oh.
The crewman with you looks at the
man,
body,
we can't fight that.
shrugs, says, "Well, at least you got one of them," and then tosses the body off.
That's such a waste.
Wait, loot the body first! No! He might have silver!
So
That didn't turn out so well.
You
That
killed
was a
him. I think it
waste.
turned out beautifully.
Oh well, second time's the charm.
Wait, don't kill all of them this way. We have to shoot them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And set them on fire!
But preferably no blood.
Taking inspiration from you, Wisp, some of the crew have also thrown grappling hooks, and at least 3 of them have bit into the railings, and they have started to begin pulling and winding the Cirrus up behind the frigate. And that brings us to Bingo as the 2 ships slowly come closer and closer.
Can you take another shot at the not sail? That's the wrong word. Balloon.
Bingo, the crew is still rushing to load your cannon.
Oh, okay. In which case,
However, the gap
shall-
between the 2 ships is now meters
Ooh.
at best.
oh, so I can do my own explosions. I shall throw a grenade. I shall throw a fire grenade. Mwah.
All right,
Bingo
yep.
is setting fire to the day.
Roll an accuracy.
Ooh. 17.
17.
And right damage is a... Hey, ass butt. 13.
Yep.
I love Castiel.
So, you toss
It's
one.
fire, so I'll aim at like a spot of the deck where loads of people are.
Yep. You toss one of your grenades, and it crashes onto the deck and detonates. Flames and smoke start billowing from where it's impacted.
Question. If
Yeah.
it's thrown at the top deck, aren't there like cases with gunpowder near the cannons?
Near the cannons, yes. And let me just see what happens with the crew as they rush around the deck.
Fire.
A group of crew are caught up in the initial explosion, and one of them was carrying a case of powder from below decks, which then also catches fire and detonates.
That's a little bit of a big boot.
This is the best day ever.
Happy birthday, Bingo!
The sun is shining. The explosions are booming. Brilliant.
Radio. So I'm aware that it is midnight in a certain place.
Time for more cannon shots.
You have time for more cannon shots?
A few, not much, like 15 minutes to half an hour. Most.
No problem. We'll give it about 15 minutes.
It's starting to get late.
Yep.
You can set fire to a lot of people in 15 minutes.
Oh boy.
I vote
So-
all of them.
The final roll. Oh, Jesus Christ, Bhajiri.
Uh-oh.
Is it good or bad? I hope it's not.
He's
triple
led us into a
one.
wall.
No, he nearly did that to begin with.
Oh, we trusted you!
This time he did the opposite.
Hey.
I think he's going to do that because he's got 5 stunt points to stuff around with.
What is he doing?
He pulls a maneuver that spins not only the Cirrus, but now that the ropes are attached, he drags the frigate with the momentum of the Cirrus along for the ride and brings the 2 ships clean side by side, with the Cirrus now on the opposite side to where the original crew were prepping for the fight.
Oh.
Yeah.
So your cannons are now level with the deck and a whole bunch of crew members and fully loaded.
Oh yeah.
And with that, Edric, the two ships slam side by side, the ropes at the rear keeping it taut,
Oh.
and your cannons are now aiming across the deck.
I'd like to aim at a group of people
Mm-hmm.
and just cannonball the middle of them.
Yep.
Cannonball!
Now, what Bhajiri rolled allowed advantage with cannons, which removes any disadvantage for aiming at small targets.
Oh, so that means that my first roll counts.
Yes.
I was so glad because I was being really sad because I rolled 3 6s and then I had disadvantage because I was aiming at human. But now I don't have disadvantage, so that means that
You have.
my roll is 6.
It's 3 6s again.
Yes.
How can you do it twice in one session? That's
I have no
unfair.
clue. I use different dice as well.
To be honest, it's surprisingly not as hard as you'd expect to keep getting sixes, but also likewise, depending on the dice I grab, I can also get a lot of ones.
Yes,
Yeah, I
do
keep
have
doing
a
that when I level up. It's like, oh, roll for new hit points. What a great.
I do have a few D6s that are in exile because they've rolled ones. And I have enough that I can keep cycling through them.
There you go, that's how he does it. He puts them in prison and teaches them a lesson. They don't do that again.
Let's just say that I nearly had one of the enemy cannons detonate, which, to be honest, it would have been the first fight. Sorry, this is currently the first fight where that hasn't happened yet.
It's only fair. Give the bad guys a break for blowing up themselves.
So to try and hit, that was a 29, by the way.
Might hit.
Right.
I've got a feeling. I've got a funny feeling.
So-
You're not sure, but
Here's what I'm going to do. Roll damage.
Okay, do I add stunt point things?
Yes, you can add stunt point things, but I would recommend going for the stuff that does hit point damage. Because
I was-
cannon poles on humans don't really need armor piercing.
No, I was thinking of going for lethal for 2d6 extra damage.
Yep.
And rapid reload.
Yep.
Because that will be for next round. So that's 10d6s plus 2d6s damage.
You get pinpoint on top of that.
Oh!
Yes, you do.
Oh, that's another 6. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, Whisp.
Timo, can you just roll for everyone else just for the rest of the session? Could you just do that? Would that be alright?
yeah.
I don't think Glenn would like that.
No, it's not about whether I like it or not. It's where all these poor little crewmen that are like clustered together.
Hey, they chose to stand next to each other.
Well, they just like each other.
Mistake.
You should always hate each other's guts. That's how you
Exactly.
survive.
You should be standing at
That's
least
pirate.
6 feet apart, always. Topical
And if
humour,
you're
guys.
cycling, then 10 meters.
Maths.
So basically, to describe the scene in front of Timo's cannon right now, there is a whole bunch of crew on the opposite side of the deck to where you are currently, still trying to reload cannons that they've just fired. There is a bunch of soldiers that have now stormed up on deck, armed and ready to fight, clustered in formation.
Mistake.
That's why we are so good at combat. We don't do like formations or thinking.
This is why we're so good. We don't do thinking.
My damage roll is surprisingly disappointing considering how well the rolls have been going tonight. Let me throw that into the calculator because I can't really parse to do.
That's all right. In the meantime, excellent.
38 damage in total.
Right.
Only 38.
Yes. So more than half of the dice that I threw ended in a 1.
Oh,
So,
unlucky.
what
All of
happens?
Next pile.
Silas waits till the decks have literally just collided with each other and fires the cannon. And the ball goes soaring clean across the enemy deck and punches right into the center of one of these formations. You see soldiers diving to the side and bodies falling, and there is an almighty crack, and you see one of the cannons on the opposite side of the ship start to tumble off
Nice.
as the cannonball ricochets off it
Oh.
and hits the cannon next to it.
Oh.
All in all, 2 cannons have been disabled or destroyed. And counting the carnage, you presume somewhere in the realm of 5 sailors and soldiers are also out of action.
That'll heal.
And with that, number 2 on the list is Mug.
Yeah. It's cannon time. Let's fire that baby.
Roll your attack.
You better work. Don't disappoint me, guys. I don't even get a freaking what's its point? Stunt
Stunt.
points. This is so bad. I hate this so much. It's probably going to hit, but I don't even get stunt points. Did I get an aim or not on this one?
You will get a name.
Okay. So that's 16 total.
That's definitely a hit.
Yeah. So it's still 10 points, but I don't even have a stunt point.
To be honest, stunt points are probably a little bit extra at this stage.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just try to take them out with my magical cannonball bullets. At least I didn't roll a 1 so far. Ooh. 6. Okay, so if anyone has a calculator nearby, that's what I... Oh, there's a +1 for accuracy.
Right.
So that...
You did more
Oh,
damage than
what's
Timo
that?
did. So, based on that, Mug follows suit and fires through the next formation over.
Yeah.
And Mug's shot is
And
still glowing.
it's magical.
Oh man.
So, Mug, your shot rips through the formation of tightly packed soldiers
Yeah.
and hits the cannon opposite. And let me just roll that to see.
Oh.
I'm going to say that's a yes. Your glowing cannonball slams into the gunpowder that is next to the cannon
Mm-hmm.
and detonates,
Yes.
sending that cannon flying, and all the
Take
crew
that.
around it are ripped to shreds.
Ooh. Take all that. Look at me cannonballing you.
Let me just double check how many crew have you on your ship.
There's not a lot of crew left on the other ship now.
How many crew on our ship? We had slightly too much for what the Cirrus is supposed to have.
Yep,
Because we
which...
meant to hire 3, I believe, and we accidentally hired 5 or 6.
And you're a brig, so you normally have 125. That brings it up to them. And there is casualties all over their deck. You have caused all sorts of carnage. And it looks like the numbers are just even between you and the enemies on that deck. And they seem to be doing the math as well and have decided that they better beat you in melee combat or they're going to lose. So they draw weapons and charge. So I will leave it for the night with the enemy storming towards your ship.
Here's hoping that I get one cannon shot off.
Oh.
Right,
Oh,
that'll
yeah.
be.
Ooh, if their ship is empty, there's something I should.
Yeah, if their ship's bigger than ours, we should just
We should let them run to ours.
Yeah, do the Pirates of the
Well,
Caribbean thing. Let them run to our ship while we get on theirs.
You might want to take some
Yeah,
cannons
but-
with you. You've already
yeah,
destroyed about 4 of theirs.
Shit, yeah, that's a good point. Alright, we'll just
Yeah.
kill all of them and then decide.
Yeah, we'll kill all of them, then mix and match to make the best.
Although we need one alive first.
Oh, yeah.
Also, there's one thing that we desperately need. Like, purely from an actual pirate tactic standpoint, we need their flag.
We do.
Well, I'll get
I'm smallest, I'll climb up and get it.
I'll get a yo-ho from the lot of you.
Yo-ho!
Yo-ho.
Ah!